Before we begin, I want you to take one slow breath in and one slow breath out, because what you're about to hear is not safe, not polite, and definitely not the version of Carl Jung or Buddhism your therapist or your meditation app wants you to know. This is Buddha Unfiltered, and tonight we're going to open the mind like a locked basement door. There is a secret line running through history. On one end, Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who dared to say that most of your life is controlled by forces you cannot see. On the other end, the Buddha, the wanderer who sat under a tree and said that the one you think you are does not actually exist. Two men, two maps of the mind, two systems that should never fit together. And yet, they mirror each other so perfectly that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Jung spent his life warning the West about the unconscious. Buddha spent his life waking the East from the illusion of the self. Put them together, and you don't just get psychology. You get a manual for enlightenment. Before we go any further, do something for me. Pause just for a second and drop a comment. Tell me where in the world you're listening from right now. Seems small, but it's not. You're not alone in this. You're part of a global circle of people who are tired of spiritual sugarcoating and surface-level self-help. Now, let's walk into the mind. Imagine Jung in his study. It's late. The room is cluttered with mandala drawings, alchemical symbols, statues from India and Tibet. Outside, Europe is tearing itself apart with war. Inside, Jung is staring at a dream he just wrote down. In the dream, he is in a house. Upstairs, everything looks normal. Books, furniture, a polite, civilized life. But he feels something calling him down through a door into a basement, and then into a deeper chamber beneath that. Bones in the walls, ancient tools, primitive symbols. When he wakes up, he realizes, this is the psyche. The polite living room is the conscious mind. The basement is the personal unconscious. And the chamber beneath that is something older than me, older than my parents, older than my culture. The collective unconscious. Now jump back 2,500 years. A wandering ascetic sits under a tree in India. He closes his eyes and looks, not at the world, but at the movements of his own mind. He sees sensations, memories, habits, fears, stories, cravings, images, impulses rising and falling like waves. He watches long enough to realize something terrifying. None of it stays. None of it is stable. None of it can be me. He opens his eyes and says, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. These 5 things create the illusion of a person. But if you look closely, there is no owner behind them. Just process. Just flow. If Jung had been sitting there with a notebook, he would have written, the Buddha just described the unconscious 2,500 years before we did, and then went further. Jung's language, ego, complexes, archetypes, personal unconscious, collective unconscious. Buddha's language, self, karmic imprints, kleshas, storehouse consciousness, dependent origination. Different words, same architecture. But here's the part nobody wants to admit. Jung admired Buddhism deeply and still fought it. Because there is one Buddhist idea that detonates the foundation of Western psychology. Anatta, no self. The Buddha says, the self you experience is a construction, a mirage, a clever hallucination your mind keeps redrawing every moment. Jung says, the self, capital S, is the very center of the psyche. The thing you must become if you want to be whole. 2 men standing at the same doorway, pointing in opposite directions. Buddha, step through and disappear. Jung, stay and become who you truly are. Hold that tension. We're going to live inside it for a while. If you're still with me, tap subscribe to Buddha Unfiltered so you don't miss the next deep dive. This channel exists for people like you, the ones who don't flinch when things get uncomfortable. Now let me tell you a story. A soldier comes to a Zen teacher. His armor is polished, but his eyes are tired. Master, he says, my mind is full of rage and shame. I see things I've done. Faces I can't forget. Dreams I can't escape. I want to cut them out of me. Tell me how to defeat my darkness. The master says nothing. He just points to the ground, where the soldier's shadow lies. Defeat that, the teacher says. The soldier draws his sword and slashes the shadow. It reappears. He stomps on it. Still there. He spins, stabs, screams, swings at the ground until he's exhausted, armor rattling, breath burning. Finally, he collapses. The master walks over, sits beside him, and says softly, "You cannot kill your shadow. You can only turn toward the light that creates it." This is Buddhism's answer. Your darkness is not a monster living inside you. It's an effect, projection. When ignorance and fear stand between you and reality, a shadow appears on the wall of your life. Now listen to Jung. He gives that shadow a name, the shadow. To Jung, the shadow is very real. Not a ghost, not a metaphor, but a psychological force containing everything you refuse to face. Hatred, lust, shame, envy, cowardice, power. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Buddha says, until you see through illusion, you will wander in suffering and call it me. Different sentences, same warning. Buddhism tells you, sit still, watch your mind. Notice how thoughts and urges appear and vanish. Jung tells you, write your dreams, listen to your slips of the tongue, follow your obsessions, track your projections. Both are saying, stop pretending you are only your Instagram bio and your polite thoughts. You are a cathedral of voices, and most of them speak in the dark. Somewhere in his 50s, Jung starts drawing circles. He doesn't really know why. They come in visions, in dreams. Circles, squares, crosses inside circles, palaces, temples. He later calls them mandalas, symbols of the self of inner wholeness. Then he discovers Tibetan sand mandalas, monks spending days creating intricate geometric universes, only to sweep them away as soon as they're finished. Jung looks at that and thinks, yes, this is the psyche. This is wholeness, this is the self. And Buddhism calmly says, no, this is impermanence. For Jung, the mandala is the map of the inner God you're growing into. For Buddhism, the mandala is a reminder that everything beautiful will crumble, including the one who is looking at it. Jung wants to preserve the mandala. Buddhism ritualizes destroying it. Can you feel the clash? Jung, wholeness is the goal. Buddha, seeing that there is no one to be whole is the goal. And yet, neither cancels the other. They describe different phases of the same journey. Let's slow down and make this personal. Think of the thing you're most ashamed of. The memory you only touch in the dark. The pattern you swear you've outgrown, but keeps coming back. In relationships, addictions, arguments, late-night scrolling, secret thoughts. Jung would call that the shadow. Buddhism would call it karmic habit, samskara, klesha, leftover imprint. Both would say, this is not random. This is not who you really are. But it is the gate in front of you. Jung's method: go in. Dream work, therapy, active imagination, honest confession. Turn toward the shadow and let it speak. Buddhist method: sit and watch. See the craving, the image, the memory arise. Feel the heat of it. Don't act it out. Don't shove it away. Just know, this is anger. This is fear. This is desire. You don't feed it. You don't fight it. You outsee it. Jung says, integrate. Buddha says, disidentify. One wants you to say, this too is me. The other wants you to see, this was never me. Which one is right? The uncomfortable answer, both. But at different times. Jung worked with people whose egos were fragmented, brittle, half-formed. He saw what happens when the sense of I is shattered too soon. Psychosis, collapse, disintegration. So when he read about no-self, about dissolving the ego, he reacted like a doctor watching someone operate with a chainsaw. He wrote in a private letter, the complete loss of ego would not be enlightenment for Westerners. It would be catastrophe. Meanwhile, Buddhism never told people to simply nuke their personality in one retreat. The Buddha spent years teaching ethics, attention, emotional regulation before he ever introduced radical insight. Meditation is not scented relaxation. Real meditation is more like opening the basement door and turning on all the lights. That's why, when people start meditating sincerely, their life can get worse before it gets better. Old wounds surface. Old fears get louder. Dreams get stranger. The shadow comes to the front row. Jung saw that and said, "Careful." Buddha saw that and said, "Good. Now we can work." Take a breath. If any part of this is poking at something inside you, that's not an accident. The psyche is listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for Buddha Unfiltered so this kind of long-form, no BS exploration keeps showing up in your feed. Algorithms follow attention. So does the unconscious. Now let's unlock the next layer. Karma, but stripped of superstition. Forget the cartoon version of karma, cosmic points, punishments from past lives, some invisible judge keeping score. Think about karma like this. Every time you react the same way, you deepen a groove. A conversation triggers you, you shut down. Someone criticizes you, you explode. You feel lonely, you reach for the same vice. Over years, those grooves become trenches. The mind falls into them automatically. That's karma, psychological gravity. Buddhism says, those grooves are not personal. They're not moral labels. They are cause and effect, seed and fruit, input and output. Jung says the same thing in one sentence. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Fate equals karma. Unconscious equals samskara. Seen from one angle, it's tragedy. Seen from another angle, it's mercy. Because if your patterns are built, they can be unbuilt. If your shadow was created, it can be integrated. If you is just conditioning, conditioning can change. And here's where Buddhism out-radicals Jung. Jung wants you to build a strong, coherent story of self. I know my wounds, I own my anger, I understand my desires, I recognize my archetypes. I am a whole person. Buddhism takes that beautifully crafted story, smiles, and burns it. Not because it's bad, because it was always just a story. Picture this. You wake up one morning with a strange calm. You make coffee. You sit down to meditate or journal or just stare out the window. Thoughts move through your head. What you said yesterday, what your mother thinks, what your ex posted, whether you're on the right path. Normally those thoughts hook you. You get pulled into arguments in your head, fantasies of revenge, waves of shame, plans to fix yourself. But today something is different. You see the thought arrive. You feel the emotional echo under it. And then, instead of grabbing it, you let it pass. There is this simple recognition. That's not me. That is a pattern happening in awareness. For a moment, the sense of being the one inside relaxes. There is only seeing, only hearing, only feeling. Life is being lived with no solid owner. The small, maybe only a few seconds, but it tastes like cool water on a burning tongue. That tiny shift from I am the thinker to thinking is happening. That is the doorway where Jung and the Buddha finally stand side by side. Jung is there to make sure the one who stepped to that doorway is not a shattered child, but a grounded adult. The Buddha is there to invite that grounded adult to realize it's just another wave on the ocean. First you become someone, then you discover that someone was never a separate thing. We're going to keep going much deeper in the next segments, into dreams, archetypes, visions, psychedelic states, and how all of them intersect with Buddhist insight. But for now, let's close this opening chapter with one final image. Imagine your mind as a vast night sky. Your thoughts are clouds. Your emotions are storms. Your shadow is the dark cluster you never look at, full of flashing lightning. Your ego is a single, small constellation you've been taught to call me. Jung spent his life teaching people to map the constellations. Name them, understand them, honor Orion, honor the bear, honor the hero, the mother, the trickster. Buddha sat beneath that sky and realized the sky was never its constellations. The sky was always the open space holding them. You are not just the stories. You are the space they appear in. That realization is the hidden psychology of enlightenment. If you're ready to go further into this, into Jung's archetypes as Buddhist deities, into trauma as rocket fuel, into what actually happens when the ego really truly cracks, stay with me, and in the next part of this audiobook we'll step over that threshold together. For now, breathe in, breathe out, and remember, you are not who you think you are. You are the one who is aware of the thinking. You've been here for hours now, listening, absorbing, reflecting, letting ideas pierce the surface and slip beneath it. Maybe you've felt a shift, attention loosening, a truth emerging, a small voice inside saying, wait, what if everything I thought was permanent was never permanent at all? Good, because now we arrive at the final teaching. The one Jung suggested, the one the Buddha lived, the one modern people spend decades chasing but never articulate clearly. Awakening is not becoming more than human. Awakening is finally stopping the performance of being one. Asterisk asterisk. For Jung, the performance ends when you stop hiding pieces of yourself. When the shadow is no longer a monster, but a messenger. When dreams stop confusing you and start guiding you. When you're no longer terrified of your own mind. For the Buddha, the performance ends when you stop believing there is a fixed you to defend. When thoughts come and go without a story. When emotions arise without an identity attached. When the mind becomes open, quiet, clear, like a lake so still it reflects the moon without distortion. And here's the secret both men were pointing to. The shadow dies not when you conquer it, but when you no longer cling to the self it feeds on. Asterisk asterisk. It has nothing left to attach to, nothing left to protect, nothing left to frighten. It collapses under the weight of its own illusion. That is awakening, the final bridge between Jung and Buddha. Let me say it clearly. Jung helps you build the house. The Buddha helps you realize you are not the house. Jung's path gives you walls, structure, stability. Buddhism opens the windows, lets the wind blow through, and eventually shows you the walls never truly existed. One prepares the mind, the other liberates it. Together they are the complete path. Stage 1, wholeness. Stage 2, freedom. Asterisk asterisk. Wholeness without freedom becomes ego worship. Freedom without wholeness becomes spiritual bypassing. The modern world is filled with both extremes. But you, if you've stayed through this entire audiobook, you're not here for extremes. You're here for truth. What happens after awakening? This is the part almost no one talks about. People think awakening is the end. It's not. It's the beginning. After the illusion disappears, what remains is astonishingly simple. You live, you breathe, you move, you feel. But there is no you in the center of it. Life becomes lighter. Thoughts become clouds. Pain becomes weather. Joy becomes wind. Other people become mirrors, not threats. The past becomes a story, not a shackle. And the future becomes open, not frightening. You still have a personality. You still laugh, cry, love, lose, grow, fail, begin again. But none of it defines you. You become the sky, not the storm. Asterisk asterisk. This is what Jung sensed in his dreams. This is what the Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree. This is what you can realize too. The final story, the two flames. A student asked a master, "What happens to me after enlightenment?" The master lit 2 candles. He said, "This flame is you before awakening. This flame is you after." They looked the same. Then the master blew out 1 flame and said, "Before awakening, you fear the wind." He blew out the 2nd flame and said, "After awakening, you are the wind." Jung would say, "You have become the self." The Buddha would say, "You have realized no self." And both are right. You become the one who holds every shape, and the one who is beyond all shapes. The one who integrates the shadow, and the one who walks without one. The one who knows their story, and the one who is free from it. Your final invitation. You've taken this entire journey with me, From the subconscious basements Jung explored to the sky-like emptiness the Buddha realized. You've sat in the tension between two giants of human understanding. You've heard truths most people never encounter. And you've made it through hours of depth, darkness, insight, and awakening. So here is the final question. The one that this entire audiobook has been preparing you for. Are you ready to meet yourself? And then let go of the one you meet? If you are, the path is already beneath your feet. The closing words. You are not the role you play. You are not your successes. You are not your mistakes. You are not the child you used to be. You are not the masks you wear. You are not your trauma. You are not your shadow. You are not your ego. You are not even your name. You are the awareness that sees it all. Structure and emptiness. Wholeness and release. Shadow and light. Self and no self. Jung and the Buddha. All of it appearing in the vast space of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for walking this path. Thank you for not turning away. And if this audiobook touched you, subscribe to Buddha Unfiltered so we can keep diving deeper together. Drop a final comment. I awaken. Your journey doesn't end here. It begins now.